So I have just received a package from Aputure. And no, I did not purchase a new light. In fact, this Amaran P60c was sent to me directly from Aputure and their factory in China, and that is because the Amaran P60c that I did purchase some months ago, which is back there illuminating the background here, has a bit of an issue. So if you already subscribe to my channel, you've probably already seen a video that I published around a month ago that described a problem that I was having with the Amaran P60c and that I believe plagues the P60x as well. And I really want to give a shout out to everyone in the comments on my previous video that also reported their problems and issues and experience with the light, because that has definitely helped, I think, also kind of corroborate what we're all seeing. Now I'll link to that video above here if you want to check that out. But basically this is an issue with the P60c where after some duration of time it no longer responds to Bluetooth whatsoever, meaning that you cannot run the BT reset command and pair this device with, say, your mobile phone to connect to it through Sidus Link, and therefore you can no longer control the light remotely, which only leaves the physical controls to be able to use the light. And pretty much no matter what you do or attempt, you're not going to be able to pair this thing with Sidus Link or get it to connect again at that point. So once I noticed this on February 17th, I reached out to Aputure's support directly. I want to give a shout out to the support manager, Angie, who I worked with kind of back and forth over a number of weeks to try and sort this out. Essentially, once I described the problem, Aputure did acknowledge that there does seem to be an issue with the Bluetooth module in these devices, and that is perhaps where the story got a bit more interesting. Now, what Aputure has apparently told me is the fact that this is a firmware-based issue, meaning that once the P60c is upgraded to a certain firmware version, it should not be an issue that would plague the device. So Aputure has apparently said that version 1.3 is, as of the time of recording this video, the most up-to-date firmware version, and this is a version where the problem is fixed. And when I checked my original Amaran P60c and its firmware version, I found that it was running version 1.1. Now, for those of you that say, well, how about I just update the firmware version on the P60c, wouldn't that solve the problem? Therein lies another problem. So the P60c and P60x do not have a USB-C port or, say, an SD card slot that would allow loading a different version of firmware onto the device. Basically, the only way you can do this is to pair the device with Bluetooth and connect to Sidus Link. But if you can no longer pair the device with Bluetooth and connect it to Sidus Link, that means you can't update the firmware on it. And so really the only way to get this thing repaired is to send the light back to Aputure and have them directly flash the firmware on it to the latest version, and or have Aputure send you a new unit, which is what happened in my case. Now, when I received the new Amaran P60c, though it wasn't up to version 1.3 of the firmware yet, I was able to successfully pair the device with Bluetooth and subsequently update the firmware on the device. And so things appear to be good, at least as of this moment. So if you own a P60c or a P60x, here are just my basic recommendations. First things first, I would pair the light to your phone or tablet and ensure that Bluetooth works when connecting to the light through Sidus Link. I would also check the firmware on your light and see if you're running version 1.3, and if not, once you have paired your light successfully with Bluetooth, I would ensure that you update the firmware as soon as possible. Alright, so now that said, there is one caveat you really do need to be aware of if and when you're doing the firmware updates on this. I had a really difficult time getting this to update when I was plugging the device in through AC power. The firmware update process just seemed to keep failing, and pretty much no matter what I did, whether a factory reset of the light or logging out and back in on the app, this still failed. That was until I changed to use Sony NPF batteries to power the light rather than AC power. Once I did that, I was able to get the update to succeed. This seems like yet another weird quirk or bug with the light or Sidus Link, but something you should definitely look into and try if you're having difficulty with the firmware updates with this light. Now, if you can't pair your light to your phone with Sidus Link and Bluetooth, and you've tried a bunch of different times and in different ways, you are probably likely experiencing the same issue that I have dealt with and that a lot of others have dealt with as well. I would reach out to Aputure's customer support as soon as you can, and I will leave a link to their email in the description below. I think fortunately for a lot of us maybe now dealing with this issue, it is early enough in the warranty period that everyone should be covered and able to get this taken care of so that they get a functioning light that does what we all expect it to. Now, am I ready to say that this issue is 100% case closed and that things are solved as far as this issue going forward? I'm not sure. I think I will hold off for a month or two before I give this light a full review and judge how its Bluetooth connectivity works in general, just in case any problem reoccurs with the Bluetooth module, or perhaps the diagnosis here was not exactly correct. That said, I really hope that this is something that is just a tiny blip on the overall radar and reputation of this light and not something that kind of plagues it long term. This really is an excellent little light panel, and I definitely want to talk about it more on this channel, but not necessarily the best start in terms of what you'd hope to get out of a brand new product. So that is my update on my specific Amaran P60c situation. As I mentioned already, I will be talking more about this light and other lights on my channel in the future, so definitely subscribe if you like content around lighting. Also, just as before, let me know in the comments below what you're dealing with in terms of your situation, if you're having the same issue with the P60c or P60x, and how your situation turned out. I'm definitely curious to hear. And perhaps videos and stories like this will bring a little extra attention to this issue from Aputure in terms of being able to rectify it for everyone that it occurs to, and also by being able to prevent this in the future from having lights that can maybe update their firmware in more than one way than through Bluetooth and Sidus Link. So for now, regarding the P60c saga and this particular story, that is all I have to say, so thanks for watching.